Yasodanandana Brajajana Rajana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjali Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjali Hari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Vishnu Paramat Prabhupada, Jagacharya, Sadasi Svedesi, Bhaktivedanta Samsara Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namaskar Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sagaho, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Sri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopidas Sham Mukunda Radha Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadavdhan Ki Jai, Gang Jamuna Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Go Premanandi, all glories to Sam devotees, all glories to Sam devotees, all glories to Sam devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Shri Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswata Deve Gauravani Prachadane Naravashesha Shunyavadi Pastatadesha Tarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasdi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 86, verse 14. Sa uvasa videheshu mitilaya priyasrami anihaya gataharya nirvartita nija kriya. Sa he Uvasa dwelled Videheshu in the kingdom of Videha, Mithilayam in the city of Mithilam, Vyashrami as a member of the regulated order of family life. Anihaya, without endeavor. Agata, came to him. Aharya, by food and other means of sustenance. Niravartita, carried out. Nija, his kriya, obligations. Translation: living as a religious householder in the city of Mithila within the kingdom of Videha, he managed to fulfill his obligations while maintaining himself with whatever sustenance easily came his way. By the will of Providence, he obtained each day just what he needed for his maintenance and no more. Satisfied with this much, he properly executed his religious duties. Purport: an ideal Vaishnava Brahmana, even if encumbered by the ties of family life, should work only as hard as required to meet his obligations. Without being unnecessarily agitated for material advancement, he should devote the best part of his time and assets to his higher duties in the Supreme Lord's service. If a householder can succeed in this program despite the unavoidable difficulties of this degraded age, he can expect Lord Krishna's personal attention, as will be seen in the case of Srutadev, the perfect Brahmana of Mithila. Similarly free from false ego was the ruler of that kingdom, my dear Parikshit, a descendant of the Mithila dynasty named Bahulasva. Both these devotees were very dear to Lord Achyuta. Pleased with both of them, the Supreme Personality of Godhead mounted his chariot, which Daruka had brought, and traveled to Videha with a group of sages. Purport: in his commentary on this verse, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti states that Srutadev and Bahulasva were unable to travel to Dwarka to see Lord Krishna because both of them had vowed to regularly worship their personal deity at home. Sri Krishna was very glad to go out of his way to give them both his audience, and while leaving Dwarka, he insisted that the sages who wanted to come with him should join him on his chariot, because otherwise they would exhaust themselves following on foot. Renowned sages would ordinarily never even consider traveling in such an opulent conveyance, but on the Lord's order, they put aside their natural aversion and joined him on his chariot. Among these sages were Narada, Vamadeva, Atri, Krishna, Dvaipayana, Vyasa, Parsuram, Asita, Aruni, myself, Brihaspati, Kanva, Maitreya, and Shavana. In every city and town the Lord passed along the way, O King. The people came forward to worship him with offerings of arghya water in their hands, as if to worship the risen sun surrounded by planets. Here the sages traveling with Krishna on his chariot are likened to the planets around the sun. The men and women of Anarta, Danva, Kuru, Jangala, Kanka, Matsya, Panchala, Kunti, Madhu, Kekaya, Koshala, Arna, and many other kingdoms drank with their eyes the nectarian beauty of Lord Krishna's lotus-like face, which was graced with generous smiles and affectionate glances. Simply by glancing at those who came to see him, Lord Krishna, the spiritual master of the three worlds, delivered them from the blindness of materialism. As he thus endowed them with fearlessness and divine vision, he heard demigods and men sing his glories, which purify the entire universe and destroy all misfortune. Gradually, he reached Videha. Purport: Srila Jiva Goswami raises the logical question of how the ordinary people along the path could even see the Lord, since not only were their eyes covered by ignorance, but the Lord's chariot was traveling faster than the wind. Supplying this answer, Srila Jiva indicates that Lord Krishna's special glance of mercy empowered every one of them with devotional purity required for entering into his association. Otherwise, he would have remained outside the scope of their power to see, as he himself states in his instructions to Uddhava, Bhaktyaham ekaya grahya, I can perceive only by devotion. By the grammatical rule of compound formation known as ekashesha, the term stavikshana vinasta tamisra drigbhya, although in its primary sense inflected as a masculine noun, may be understood in this context as referring to both men and women. So here we begin another story, that of Krishna going to Mithila, where he meets two great devotees. One is a poor, simple brahmana, the other is the king. But as mentioned here, both were great devotees, and because they had deities, they could not leave those deities, so Krishna decided that he would go there to visit them. So that in itself is a sign that the Lord is very attracted to his devotees, or under the control of his devotees. In one sense, he doesn't have to leave Dwarka because he has so many devotees there, and he's living very comfortably. Of course, he responds to those devotees in Dwarka, but he recognized these two devotees, and therefore he especially went to see them. Of course, this also is not much of an endeavor for the Lord, because he can do that also very easily. In this case, he used his chariot, but his chariot also goes faster than the wind, so there's no effort at all in the Lord doing this. And in fact, his chariot was so big he could put all the sages in the chariot as well. So it was a rather fantastic chariot that he took there. So no endeavor on the part of the Lord to go there, but nevertheless he left Dwarka and went there, particularly for these two great devotees. So it shows how the Lord is attracted to the devotee. This, of course, is also mentioned in the Upanishads, like the Mundaka Upanishad, where it states that you cannot attain the Lord by meditation, or by hearing the scriptures, or by other endeavors, etc. The Lord reveals himself to the person he chooses. To that person, he reveals himself. So it depends on the Lord who he wants to reveal himself to. But then the logic is, who will the Lord reveal himself to? And he'll reveal himself to a person who pleases him. And who pleases the Lord? One who is devoted to the Lord. So therefore he reveals himself to the devotees, so he's attained by devotees. So that is what is illustrated here. And of course the considerations of material considerations were not there for the Lord. The Brahmana was very poor, so that was not a consideration. So because of his devotion, he was a great devotee, therefore the Lord revealed himself to him. So in this way the Lord is pleased by a person who has affection for him. And that person may be in any position, any varna or whatever, doesn't really matter. The Lord is willing to reveal himself. So we see here very swiftly he went to Mithila on his chariot to meet these two very qualified devotees. So these verses here show how on the way the people saw him, and the people also got great benefit from that, even though they were not so qualified to live in Dwarka and personally associate with the Lord. All the people in the different provinces that got to see the Lord began to appreciate him, and had very, very great effect upon them. They got great benefit. Said to be the cause was that he glanced upon them and they were able to appreciate him very nicely. And in this way, they got delivered from material life. This is an example of how the Lord gives special mercy to persons. In this case, by his glance. He glanced over them and revealed himself to them, and suddenly they advanced in their devotion. So a type of Kripa Siddhi. Nevertheless, we can say that these people were definitely not demons. They were not opposed to the Lord. They were ordinary people, so they weren't pure devotees also. They were just ordinary people at that time, but nevertheless, the Lord glanced upon them and they developed devotion, and they were able to see the Lord very nicely. The demons can also see the Lord, but actually they don't see the Lord. Just like you can go to the holy Dham of Mayapur or Vrindavan, but if you're a materialist, you don't actually see the Dham at all. So you need spiritual eyes to see the Dham. You need spiritual eyes to see the Lord. So Shishapal actually didn't see the real Lord when he was cursing him and doing whatever. But still, that has some benefit. Even if they don't see the Lord, by concentrating on him, even with hatred, they get purified. So it's the intensity of that concentration which purifies them, and it purifies them ultimately of their hatred even. That's for Krishna. That's a special quality of Krishna that does not apply to the other forms of the Lord. Therefore, when Krishna manifests himself here to all these different people, he glances upon them and they develop some devotion. We should not be surprised if even the demons ultimately get purified even from hatred. So these people who had no hatred, by the short time in which they saw the Lord, they advanced greatly in devotional service. So that's not a surprising thing, because of the attractive nature of the Lord and because of the mercy of the Lord, that he would give mercy so that they can advance quickly. So this is a way in which the Lord helped all people to advance. Generally comes into the material world as avatar to establish dharma and to establish bhakti for everyone. But particularly he has pastimes with devotees, in this case with the people of Dwarka, and previously with the people of Vrindavan. But that is like limited, certain group of people. What about the rest of the world? So here we have a whole list of places: Anartha, Danva, Kuru, Jangala, Kanka, Matsya, Panchala, Kunti, Madhu, Kekaya, Koshala, Arna, etc. All these different places he went through, and there were people there. So they happened to get benefit from him also. They got delivered as well. So not only the certain people, and not just the people of Dwarka and Vrindavan got the benefit of his association, but all sorts of people in that particular area that he visited got his association. So another show of how the Lord is very merciful to everyone. So in this way, the Lord shows his great mercy to everyone. In the 11th canto, it is quoted that Bhaktya aham ekaya grahaya, I am attained by ekaya bhaktya, which means one bhakti, which means pure bhakti. And only by bhakti to Krishna. So if you worship me and nobody else, with no other desires, then you attain me. So this is equivalent to that verse from the Mundaka Upanishad, which says, I reveal myself to somebody who I choose. Who I choose. And he chooses that person who has bhakti. And of course, people may not have pure bhakti, They can have mixed bhakti, or in the case of these people, it was undefined. Their bhakti was a little bit general. But everyone can advance. So from a mixed bhakti or a very ordinary type of bhakti, a person can advance to pure bhakti. And in that whole process, the Lord will have mercy to those persons, as he had mercy to Gajendra, who had mixed devotion, or to Dhruva as well. So it's not a rule that you only have to do pure bhakti, but it's expected that one will advance beyond that mixed bhakti to a pure state in order to have a steady association with the Supreme Lord. Therefore, for doing sadhana, we don't encourage mixed bhakti, because if we get stuck on that, then we can't advance to pure bhakti. So we're always encouraged to get to pure bhakti and practice that, even though it's not literally pure. So, if one practices pure bhakti in sadhana, this will lead to pure bhakti in prema. If we do mixed bhakti, we can also advance through that mixed bhakti, but it is slow. Hopefully, we will advance into pure bhakti at a certain point by association with devotees, and then the progress will be quicker. But even if we don't advance to pure bhakti, we still get the mercy of the Lord, because it's worship of the Lord and he's merciful to everyone. Of course, he's merciful even to neutral people or non-devotees, or even to demons. So what to speak of a person who's got mixed bhakti, definitely he will have mercy upon that person and they can advance. And in fact, the Lord is so merciful to a person with mixed bhakti that he promotes them even to the spiritual world. So that's a great advantage over karmis and gyanis. They don't get to the spiritual world at all. Right. So it is said there are 5 types of liberation, such as salokya and sarupya and sarshti. Sayuja, of course, the devotee doesn't want at all. That is the liberation of jnana. So that's what the jnanis get. Those who do karma yoga don't even get up to that. They simply get higher planets in the material world, so that's even lesser. So therefore that's considered to be an inferior process. Jnana is superior because you get to that type of liberation, sayuja, mukti. But the other 4 types of liberation are considered to be superior to that. So that is what the devotees who do mixed bhakti can get. They get the same planet, they get a spiritual body, they can have certain powers in the spiritual world, etc. But though they're in the spiritual world, and though they have spiritual bodies, they're also different from those who practice pure bhakti. So generally we see in the descriptions of the spiritual world with Krishna, or even with Vishnu, we see the Lord and he's got his associates around him. So these are the type of associates, are the type of positions that a person who practices pure bhakti attains. He gets personal association with the Lord. Those that practice this mixed bhakti, though they have spiritual bodies in the spiritual world, do not get such association. So in other words, they're there in the spiritual world and they worship the Lord, etc., but at a greater distance. So they're not even mentioned as far as the scriptures are concerned. Of course, we can say that, let's say in Mathura, when Krishna came to Mathura and he was in the arena of Kamsa, then various people saw him. The Vrishnis saw him as Supreme Lord. His parents saw him as a small child in Vatsalya Rasa. The young women saw him in Madhurya Rasa. The friends saw him in Sakya Rasa. And then the demons saw him in secondary rasas of fear and hatred, etc., anger, etc. And there were some sages there, Shantarasa. So they saw the Lord, definitely. So it's a rasa, because there's a relationship with the Lord. It's a very peaceful rasa. So there were sages in Mathura and Shantarasa. They were attracted to the Lord and they were devotees, but in Shantarasa. So at a distance they see the Lord and they appreciate his beautiful form because it's like Brahman, reminds them of Brahman. So their relationship is quite distant. They have a relationship, definitely, but it's quite a distant type of relationship. So they don't even really get mentioned as part of in the pastimes in Mathura or whatever. Therefore, one can, through mixed devotion, get quite a high status from a material point of view. They can get to the spiritual world and surpass even the Gyanis who end up in personal Brahman, but they don't get the highest goal. So in other words, the Lord reveals himself differently to different persons according to the type of devotion and the amount of devotion. So for those who do pure bhakti, then there is a complete revelation. For those who do mixed bhakti, a more general realization. For those that don't do bhakti, do jnana, they just realize Brahman. And for those who do karma yoga, no realization. Just the external factors of the Lord's material energy. And for those doing sadhana bhakti who are practicing pure bhakti, then in sadhana we don't get the direct revelation. And in bhava we get a partial revelation, and in prema we get full realization of Supreme Lord. So, all according to the qualification of the person, then the Lord reveals himself. And for those who are not qualified at all, the Lord does not reveal himself. Therefore, the Lord says, I'm covered by my maya. And these people, the demons cannot see me because I'm completely covered up. They don't see me, they see a material form instead. But those who are a little favorable, they see the Lord a little bit, they appreciate a little bit. And these people here, they could appreciate a little more. They were a little favorable, they could appreciate more. And then the Lord encouraged them by glancing upon them, and they could appreciate the Lord's beauty nicely. And if one gets to bhava stage, one actually has direct vision of the Lord. And in prema, that's even more intense. So, and it's all according to the bhakti of the devotee. So according to the amount of bhakti, and according to the type of bhakti, then the Lord reveals himself. And if one does Vaidhi bhakti, the Lord reveals himself in one way. And if you do Raganuga bhakti, the Lord reveals himself in a little bit different way. So thus the Lord responds to the devotion of the person, to the way in which you surrender and to the amount that you surrender. Then the Lord reveals himself, the Lord responds. So this is a very general principle that is we can see illustrated in many, many places. So here we can understand that Bahulasva and Shrutadev were very great devotees, because not only the Lord revealed himself, but he made special effort to go there and reveal himself. And of course, by doing so, he illustrated to the sages the greatness of these devotees. So all these sages who went with him are witness to the Lord's great attractive nature and the mercy he had to these great devotees. So, and these sages could realize the greatness of the devotees who were there. So the Lord ultimately, this is his main quality, to show his compassion for his devotees. So that is what is illustrated in this story.
Notice in the beginning of the class you were explaining regarding this, even the demon, when they were killed, they also get benefit. But in the case of Shishupala and this Kamsa, we see normally after that only we see that they get benefit, but before that we don't see that much. Mean they don't show anything that okay, now we got purified and we suppose now we let us start worshiping the Lord. But whatever happened through the scripture we see only after death only, not before that.
Yeah.
So how to understand this?
Well, we could say this also is some arrangement of the Lord. So Shishupala, for instance, he hated the Lord. In fact, he hated the Lord for 3 lifetimes.
But here one more
And
thing.
in this lifetime, he hated the Lord, and up to the point where he insulted the Lord at the end, he seemed to hate the Lord equally. However, that seems to be an appearance, because it is said that gradually, by concentration on the Lord and hatred, then all of his anarthas and karmas, etc., were destroyed. However, the outer shell of that remained, just as in the case of Ajamil. Though all his karmas were gone, he looked like he was this Ajamil, sinful brahmana, doing sinful activities until the end of his life, attached to his family members, etc. So it didn't look like he had changed at all. But internally, everything was gone. So it didn't manifest externally, but internally there was purification. So we can say the same thing for Shishupal. It didn't look like he changed at all up until the last point where he insulted Krishna. But internally, actually, he was getting purified. And then when he was completely ready at the right moment, then the Lord killed him and he got his final purification and went to Vaikuntha.
In the beginning of the year class, you are saying that this Shishupala, he was not seeing Krishna the Supreme Lord, even not even his spiritual body also. He was seeing the material, like a material form. It is not a spiritual form.
Yeah.
So how this seeing the Lord's material form get purified, Shishupala got purified. It's something interesting.
Well, he's seeing the form as material, but it's a spiritual form.
It is
So he's
spiritual.
concentrating on it.
Yeah.
So even though he's concentrating in hatred on a material, what he thinks is a material form, because that's all they can see, the nature of the form is that it can purify him even then, if you intensely concentrate on that form, even in hatred and thinking it's material. That's the power of Krishna. It doesn't happen in the other forms because they don't concentrate. But with Krishna, you concentrate on that form, and then gradually it purifies you, and then eventually you do see the spiritual form.
Another question, Maharaj. You are saying that you are quoting from Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhakti Aham Ekaragraham means he is only attained by the devotion. Okay. So now question is that, like, see, but here again you are quoting from Mundaka Upanishad that he revealed to him who he chooses. So here revealing oneself to oneself is depending completely on here devotion, and here again is saying that Lord's own will.
Yeah.
So how to understand these two
So
things?
the Lord chooses, it's up to him. He chooses whom he likes. Yeah? Who he'll choose a person because he likes the person, not because he hates him. So the choice is based on dearness. The Lord has affection for that person, therefore he chooses him. But then, why does the Lord have affection for a person? Not because of his money, not because of his beauty, not any material qualification. So it must be because of the devotee's bhakti. So therefore, the Lord reveals himself because of bhakti in a devotee.
So means here again you are saying that we see that Lord is controlled by the devotion of the devotees. Means Sri Krishna Akarshani, that I explained. So now here devotion controls the Lord again choosing one person to reveal himself. No. So here can you separate devotion and the Lord? Can you separate devotion and Lord? Devotion, because devotion controls the Lord, again devotion reveals the Lord.
Yeah.
So can you separate it both are one?
What, the statements?
Yeah,
They're similar. The Lord is controlled by devotion.
Yeah.
So in other words, he reveals himself through devotion. Revealing himself also means he's controlled, that he will reveal himself. That means he's under the control of the devotee. In fact, he comes to Mithila and reveals himself. So he's controlled by those devotees. Not that they want to control him, but the Lord becomes attracted to them and he'll do what they want.
And the question like Manasi, we see in the case of Sudama, although Sudama suffered a lot materially, we can understand, but Krishna didn't go there. We cannot say that Sudama didn't have love for Krishna. He also had. But in the case of this Bahulashva and Shudra, we see even Lord himself is coming to give his darshan. So can you say that this Bahulashva and Sudhava's position more higher than the Sudama?
Not necessarily, no. I think you can say this is only in terms of pastimes. We can say, why didn't the Lord go and visit Sudama? Maybe afterwards he went there. We don't know. But all the stories of Krishna and Dwarka are not described, so he could have gone there, whatever, we don't know. Huh? But this arrangement was made just also to illustrate again how Krishna is attracted to his devotee. In this case, he could go to Dwarka. In this other case, they couldn't go to Dwarka, the two of them, because they were worshipping their deities. In that case, he could go to Dwarka, but he was also impelled by his wife to do so. Yeah? So therefore he went there. So we can say that his intention in going there was not so devotional, because it was only because of his wife who wanted to ask for something to support the family. So the intention was not pure. But when he got there, then he didn't want to ask for anything, which shows his devotion. And also we see Krishna's great affection for him was manifested to such an extent that ultimately he fulfilled his desire of his wife and whatever, and gave him that. So it's just another way of illustrating his control, how his devotee controls him. So in the case of Sudama, the control was that he fulfilled that desire of his wife, and he gave him, sustenance for his family, etc.
Maharaj, in case here we see that the citizens actually already knew that Krishna is coming, and they were all prepared to receive him with the Arghya water. So which means they had some faith, and then the other, Krishna also graced them with their mercy. I mean, it appears from the commentary that they had no qualification. But we see that...
Well, they had some qualification, otherwise they wouldn't even go, wouldn't even gather to see the Lord if he was coming. So they had some. But we can say it's not the highest bhakti. So it's a type of general bhakti, I think, a dilute form of dasya or something like that. Which I think is described by Jiva Goswami in the Priti Sandarbha. That's a one classification of people. It's a rather general type of bhakti.
Okay. Maharaj, you were giving example of Ajamil, but in case of, there is some slight difference, because in case of Shishupal, till the end he behaved like a demon. But Ajamil, after witnessing the conversation between Vishnu Dutas, he changed.
That was afterwards, but before then, he didn't change.
But then still we see that he went through the...
But his sins were all gone, actually.
Yeah.
But it didn't look like it. So in that sense. Later he changed because of association with the Vishnu Dutas. But before then, he looked like the same old person.
So Maharaj, the question I think is regarding the behavior of the person. So in some cases, the behavior may not change right till the end, and then one goes to the spiritual world, which is little...
Well, he didn't go directly to the spiritual world.
No, in case of Shishupal.
Huh?
In case of Shishupal.
In the case of Shishupal, yeah, because he got the direct touch of the Lord in the Sudarshan Chakra. So that he got prema. What's that? He went to the spiritual world.
Okay.
In the case of Ajamil, he didn't get that touch, so he didn't get it.
I have another question, like you're explaining regarding this 5 kinds of mukti. Among the 5 kinds of mukti, that normally devotee doesn't desire this sayujya, who is merging the Lord. And what about the saripya? In the case of, we see Pondarak Vasudev, he was also imitating Lord. And as a Bhakti Samhita Sindhu stated, he is like a Shigala Vasudeva, something like that. But he got the realization of Brahman also again. After that, although he got the form like a Krishna, but he was experienced the bliss of Brahman. How to understand this? Because although he got the saripya.
Yeah, so it's just like in Shantarasa. They have a form in the spiritual world because they have rasa with the Lord, and they can also perceive the Lord. But the bliss they perceive is something like the Brahmananda.
Yeah, Brahman, yeah.
They appreciate the Brahman aspect of Krishna or Vishnu, whoever they see as the Supreme Lord. So their experience is not so intense because of that.
But in the material world, see when this Pandar Vasudeva was there, he was exactly imitating Krishna's all the pastimes. But that means, he's supposed to do the same thing in the spiritual world also, as a Saripya.
Well, Sarupya doesn't mean everything's the same. There's some aspects are the same, so you get a similar form. That's all. Doesn't mean that everything is the same, that you do the same activities or whatever. Obviously, Sarupya means you're still a jiva in the spiritual world, so you don't become the Supreme Lord and act like the Supreme Lord. At the same time, you have devotion, so you're a devotee of the Lord.
The Pandaru was not a devotee.
Huh?
He was a demon.
Yeah. So here he is a demon, and he acted in different ways, which were non-devotional at all, imitating the Supreme Lord. So.
That's why the Shigal word is used, because of imitation.
Huh?
Shigal word is used in Sanskrit. Shigal. Because of this imitation. Shigal.
Yeah.
Fox in English.
Yeah.
Because of the imitation, normally fox imitate other fox, because of that. The Shigal word is used in Sanskrit word.
What is it?
Shigal.
Well, that's the name of the person, I think.
Shigal Vasudeva said that.
Yeah, it's the name of a person.
Is not a Pandarak Vasudeva same or different one?
A different person, I think.
That-
That's a story from Harivamsa, I think.
Mantra